Hello and welcome to Clusters. Stephen, a disciple of Jesus, has been arrested, tried and stoned to death. This has been followed by a persecution against the young Christian church, and many have been scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. A common factor here is a man named Saul. He was present at Stephen's murder and approved of what was being done. He then went door to door, dragging any Christians he found off to prison. Acts chapter 8 tells us he started to destroy the church. Now he's at it again, breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He's a man who really hates Jesus and all of his followers. What do you think causes such hatred of Christians in people? So he requests permission to take a group of men to the synagogues in Damascus to hunt for Christians there. The image of these believers being hauled back to Jerusalem in chains is quite terrifying. Permission is granted, and so off he goes. What happens next, though, is simply amazing. Imagine you'd never read the book of Acts and knew nothing of the Christian church and its history. How would this make you feel? If this was fiction, it would either be one of the greatest twists ever written or a plot development that was simply unbelievable. The transformation is so staggering that it's hardly surprising that first Ananias in verse 10 and later the other disciples in Jerusalem in verse 26 were afraid of him. Now you might think that's enough for one Clusters evening, but no, we have two further stories, both involving the Apostle Peter. Peter travels across the country visiting lots of different places and ends up in Lydda, a town about 30 miles northwest of Jerusalem. Lydda, though, was its Greek name. In Hebrew, it was, and still is today, called Lod. There he meets a man named Ananias, presumably a Christian who's been paralysed and bedridden for 8 years. Peter invokes the name of Jesus and Ananias is healed in an instant. As a result, many within the town and the surrounding region of Sharon come to believe as well. The action then moves on to Joppa, about 12 miles from Lydda. This is the port from which Jonah set sail before being chucked overboard in a storm and swallowed by a large fish. Today it's part of the larger conurbation of Tel Aviv-Yafo and the place that lends its name to Jaffa oranges. Here we're introduced to Dorcas, or Tabitha, who's already a Christian. She has a small connection to Holy Trinity. Do you know what that is? Sadly, she promptly becomes ill and dies, and so Peter, who they've heard is nearby in Lydda, is sent for. He's taken to see her body, where the grieving widows tell him about what a generous woman she'd been, while showing him the clothes she'd made. Peter sends them away, gets on his knees and prays. Then he says, "Tabitha, get up." And sure enough, the life returns to her. Once again, the local Christians are encouraged and many in the area believe in Jesus. There you have it. 3 astonishing events for you to discuss and pray about. I hope you have a great cluster.